meeting of the Clayton, City of Clayton Board of Zoning Appeals to order Tuesday, November 16th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Roll call.
Mr. McGinnis?
Here.
Ms. Weeks? Here. Mr. Voigt?
Here.
Ms. Hunter? Here. And Ms. Byers?
Here.
Okay, I'll go through the meeting procedure pretty quick. Doesn't look like we have a complete full house, so we might, well, we won't skip any part of it. First of all, I'm going to be administering the oath to anybody who wishes to speak on the agenda item. Everything that's said before and to the Board of Zoning Appeals is sworn testimony, if you will. We're a quasi-jurisdictional or a quasi-judicial board, so we'll go through the agenda items, ask staff to present the case. We'll ask the applicant if they'd like to add anything to what has been presented up to that point. And then I'll be asking the board members if they have any questions or comments to the applicant. We'll open the floor to public comment, go through and have a roll call there too, explain some public comment rules, although I don't think that's going to be much of a concern tonight. Ask if any comments. We'll ask any questions, of course, on any public comments that might happen. We'll then close the floor to public comments. Ask the applicant if you'd like to rebut anything that you might have heard, and then we'll go ahead and go through a discussion, and then we'll go through the findings of fact for the conditional use on the case tonight. So, first thing we want to do is administer the oath to the public, and that will be for anybody that wishes to speak tonight. So, anybody wishing to speak on the application tonight, please stand and raise your right hand. Okay. First item on the agenda tonight is the minutes of the previous meeting. This will be for the September 21st board zoning meeting that we had. Are there any comments, additions, deletions, or changes? If not, do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 You need to do a roll call for that? Thank you. Okay, so new business. Okay, the case in front of us tonight is case CU 21-01, reviewing a request for a conditional use to allow equipment repair for Dan the Mower Medic, whose business is located at 6080 Taywood Road in the commercial mixed-use zone. Staff.
To introduce the application. We do have a conditional use request before us tonight. The application was received on October 27th. That's to allow equipment repair for the applicant's business, Dan the Mower Medic. It sits on a commercial parcel owned by XBO Properties. It's a total of 7.73 acres. It's formerly the Old Fellers Market and Greenhouse. Property is zoned CMX for commercial mixed use, in which equipment repair heavy is listed as a conditional use. And to the right, I've got an image of where the site is located. Next slide. And so on this slide then, just the surrounding area. You can see Westbrook Road to the south. Taywood Road goes north-south from that. The site's highlighted in red. You have the Meadowbrook Golf Course kind of off to the west. Next slide. And this is zooming in a little closer to the site. I've added from the applicant site plan, I added A, B, and C. Those are the different areas of the tenant space, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Next slide. So once again, the request is for conditional use permit to allow equipment repair heavy for the applicant's business. The business is involved in sales, repair, and servicing of a variety of outdoor power equipment and small engines. Area A, as shown on the site plan, is for reception and sales. Area B is the equipment repair area. That's in an enclosed part of the building. And Area C is equipment storage. It's the greenhouse structure that now has corrugated metal siding to kind of block views into the greenhouse structure. The tenant space has 10 parking spaces that are attributed to the business. Access to the site comes from Taywood Road. If you've been down Taywood, you know, the site is right at grade with the road. Next slide. After review of the application and consideration, staff does recommend approval of the requested conditional use with the following condition: that no equipment repair is permitted to occur outside of the enclosed structure labeled as Area B on the conditional use site plan that was submitted by the applicant. And then for the remainder of the discussion, next slide, I'll put up some pictures and I'll just kind of step through what we have. Pointing to the top left corner, that's the front of the tenant space. This is Area A. This is where the repair is going on in Area B. This is the kind of just showing the parking lot. Here are the equipment storage areas within the greenhouse. And that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from the board?
I have a couple questions, Seth, regarding staff's summary description and the analysis of the request. You make mention that Dan the mower medic and or his partner were supposed to file certain paperwork with the city of Clayton. Is there a specific time frame that they had to complete that by?
We don't forcefully instruct it or strictly enforce it. I did give him probably more time than I typically would have. I know he's been in there a while, but that was more just kind of me not, following up, and I should have.
Okay, so to tug on that string, what is the typical time frame for filing that? 30, 60, 90 days?
I mean, typically what I'd like to see is the paperwork is filed when the business is moving in and around the same time the operation begins. I've waited much longer for other businesses. It just depends on the business. And like I say, we don't go out there and strictly, kind of lean on them to file.
All right, perfect. And then, excuse me, how are businesses supposed to know about the filings with the city of Clayton? I mean, I'm assuming that Dan's a small business owner and probably 1, 2, maybe 4 employees at most. So with the big corporations, they have the people who kind of go out there and know. So, I mean, do we just have it on the City of Clayton website saying, hey, if you're moving in as a business, make sure you do X, Y, Z?
I think that we do have our Welcome to Clayton packet on the website. Folks call in, they want to ask about locations that they're considering, and I go through all of that with them. And I did have that discussion with the property owner, and I believe he shared that with the applicant, and the applicant can get into more detail in terms of what did or did not happen with this partner. But at the end of the day, I believe they were aware of it, and I just didn't follow up very quickly. So.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Seth. Appreciate
Welcome.
that.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions from the board? I guess I have one. In your analysis of the site, Seth, did you see anything that was already existing non-conforming in any way, shape, or form?
No, I don't think so. I think the parking is sufficient. The structures are obviously old and have been there, since Old Fellers was operating. Other than I had an opportunity to go out and talk with the property owner about the siding that he was going to be putting on the greenhouses. That's kind of when I saw the equipment, storage, and we talked about the nature of the repair portion of the business, and that's kind of when we moved on to the discussion about the conditional use, so.
Okay. I did notice in our packet that you mentioned that there would be a potential of a sign going up at some time. Are they going to be using the existing sign that I think Fellers had on the side of their building? Or have you discussed that with the applicant yet?
Yeah, I mean, the pictures aren't great, but there is a tenant sign up, and waiting for this conditional use to occur, I do have the zoning certificate for commercial new use, and I have the sign permit application, just kind of waiting on the result of tonight, so.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mhm.
That makes sense, thank you. And going to ask just because I have to, and everybody within a certain radius has been notified by mail.
Correct, within 300 feet, all of the property owners have been notified. And I've not heard from any others than, I did provide you a copy of a letter from the property owner for this location, and obviously he's supportive of his tenant.
Thank you, sir, I appreciate
Welcome.
that. Any other comments or questions from the board?
I had one more question, Seth, that I forgot to ask, sorry. The building, the Fellers residence, that would be south of the commercial buildings here, is that currently being rented as a residential property?
I know that initially it was. I'm not sure if it's currently being rented or not. I do know that it had been split off before I started and rezoned to residential.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anybody here willing and able to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come to the podium and state your name and your current address for us, please.
The business address or my personal?
I think both would be
Both?
good, yeah.
Okay.
Well, the conditional use is for your business address, so we'll just keep that, but your residence, I think they want to hear that too.
Okay. My name's Daniel Morris. I am the owner-operator of Dan the Mower Medic. Address is 6080 Taywood Road, Inglewood, Ohio, 45322. And my personal address is 53 South Westview Avenue, Dayton, Ohio, 45403.
Is there anything you'd like to say in favor of the application that we're looking at tonight?
I would just love to provide a service to the community.
That's short and sweet, and I can appreciate that.
Yep.
Let me ask you a few questions, and as we, just to kind of make sure that we have them on the record. There's a lot of analysis that Seth had already done, but I just want to kind of confirm that with you as being the business owner, if that's okay.
That's all right.
Did you notice, you've been there for a while now, right? For about a year or so?
About 5 months, since May.
Oh, okay, since May. Well, that's good. We had some pretty good storms here during the summertime. Did you notice any problem with flooding, with water runoff, or anything along those lines?
Not really.
Well, that's good. How about your parking? Have you, is your business kind of steady, or do you have surges? I know in the springtime, everybody's going to want to have their mower done probably in April or May. But you might have missed that, surge, but
Yep.
do you anticipate, any big surges in traffic or anything in there?
Not really. I'm averaging probably around 3 customers a day that'll walk in, have questions. Actually, turning towards winter, I'm actually getting a bit more equipment in for snow blowers since they're calling for bad snow this year. Other than that, no, not really. Spring probably will ramp up quite a bit, but I'm sure the parcel is well off for my size of business.
Okay, because I know when Fellers was there, they'd have a mum sale or a corn sale or something, and that place would be an absolute zoo. So, I was just kind of getting a a feel for the intensity. And, you know, I tend to agree with what you're saying. So, you know, thanks. I appreciate your candor on that. You're right there at the corner of Taywood and Westbrook, and sometimes people go around that intersection pretty quick. You know, do you foresee any particular problem with, you know, people with trailers or anything like that that may somehow, you know, sometimes kind of slow down the traffic there a little bit? Or what do you think? You know, you've been there for a while now, so maybe you've got a little bit of a feel for that.
Actually, with customers with trailers, since there's a pull around around the house, turning off from that pull around, it actually makes it really easy with a trailer. Doesn't really get in anyone's way, since majority of the people are coming off of, I forget which road, but when they turn left down Taywood, it creates quite an opening for people to come out from the business, and doesn't really obstruct any traffic.
Okay, that's smart if you could do that, and maybe put a couple signs up or kind of tell people to try to do it that way. And you know, just as a matter of, you know, of interest, I had a neighbor that never knew how to back a trailer up, and he had, you know, you kind of ruined my yard there in one section because he tried it about 15 times with a front-wheel drive truck, you know, when it was all nice and wet. So sometimes that can be a little silly. But,
Right.
yeah, but, okay, I appreciate that, and I'm glad you're aware of what that pattern might be. Is this the last of the paperwork you need?
I think so.
I'll let Seth be your guide on that, okay? Okay, I appreciate that. And you got external lights there, exterior lights there, right? Are they kind of, have you changed them or anything, or anything along those lines? Are they,
I know they're inoperable right now. That is more or less the landlord's cause. Yeah. I actually needed to bring that up since they're not working. I don't know if he knows that they're not working, but I would like to have them working so that security cameras and whatnot will actually work.
no, that does make sense. You know, I appreciate that. You may want to just double check with Seth when you get to that point. The only reason I bring that up is because sometimes, especially if you're in a residential area, you know, and you got a commercial building, you know, they should be kind of shielded a little bit so that it's not really shining in someone's house or anything along those lines. So, you know, I do appreciate what you're talking about with the security, but I wanted to ask that, you know, just to make sure. So if you could just get with Seth and, you know, when you get to that point, just to make sure he's got an eyeball on that, I think you'll be good then.
Cool.
Okay. And then you got like regular dumpsters and that kind of good stuff out there. I saw in the application that Seth put together that you got a dumpster for big pickup for the big items and stuff like that that you might need hauled away on a routine basis. The other thing he mentioned in there was that he talked to you about oil, when you change the oil and the different lubricants, and that you have a service that comes out and clears that out and all that, right?
Yeah, they pick up a 50-gallon drum and leave an empty one.
Okay. Now, this is small engines, I'm assuming, so, you know, it's not like it's, you know, doing a car oil change or anything like that.
Yeah.
So you don't really have an oil pit in there that you're using per se. So all this is still above ground, and it's going to be contained in that B area that we're talking about on the plot plan, right? Inside that area.
Yep.
That's concreted.
Yep.
Okay. So there shouldn't be any problem with any.
Runoff or anything.
Exactly. Okay, cool. I just kind of wanted to kind of, you know, touch base on those findings of fact and make sure that we'll be in pretty good shape. So, you know, that's why I was kind of going through that. Does anybody on the board have any more questions to Mr. Morrison?
I have a question. Do you have any intention to expand the business? I know right now it shows about those A, B, and C areas on there. Do you intend to rent any additional space or build any additional buildings eventually, or
Yes.
what's your thought on that?
The greenhouses in the back, Eventually, I'm sure I'm gonna get big enough that I'll need more storage space, so I will be renting those at some point. Actually, my end goal was to actually buy the whole property and live in the house, work at the office, and run it that way. Yep.
Okay. Well, now with the greenhouses that you would potentially use, would that just be for storage?
Yes.
Okay, so you just keep that B area as the place where you're gonna be doing the actual work on the equipment, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Well, you know, I always have questions. Excuse me. So, Dan, couple of follow-on questions. I'm going to start with the question that Bob had about Area B, where you're going to be doing, or Building B, where you're going to be doing the repairs. And I know we have that 50-gallon drum. And I know it's a concrete padded area, and when chemical spills are going to happen, I assume that you already have a plan in place to mitigate any sort of spills or the runoff.
Correct. Yeah, I have floor dry to clean up any oil spills that do occur. I don't really do anything with coolant, so that's not really a concern on my side. Other than that, yeah, it's working on small engines. You're only draining about a quart of oil at a time, so it's not
And
much.
then, what about gasoline? Do you have?
Gasoline goes into that waste oil container also.
So is there a fire suppression system in the building currently, or is it just, I'm assuming, a small fire extinguisher?
There is 5 fire extinguishers that I just replaced.
Perfect. How many employees are you currently with the business?
2.
Perfect. I want to talk about the paperwork that should have been filed. When you took possession of the property from XBO, did they inform you of any sort of conditions on it, or they just handed over the keys and said, here you go, you know, open your doors, best of luck with your business?
Well, with the craziness of everything that's gone on, I don't remember, to be honest.
That's fair.
I remember when we were filing them that Dallas, my business partner, which is no longer my business partner, told me that he was handling it, and he wasn't.
Okay, so would it be fair to assume that Dallas was kind of in charge of the paperwork and getting that information from XBO, where you're more of the guy who's handling the actual repairs and the day-to-day stuff?
Correct.
Okay.
Now I'm doing both.
Perfect. All right, well, that actually answers my next question as well, so I don't think I have any further questions. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions for the applicant? Okay, Mr. Morris, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, should I call open to the public comments? Hearing none, I'll close it. Seth, do you have any more comments you'd like to make?
Nothing further?
Okay. Any more comments from the board?
I have a general comment about this. I believe Ms. Weeks and I are the only two on the board who heard the original variance request. Bob, I believe you were in Australia or somewhere else having fun. So it's nice to see that this property is actually being utilized again. I know that Fellers has been empty for some time, and XBO did come in and ask for a variance back in 2019 because of the tornadoes, and with their goal and effort to rent it quickly. So it was kind of to me, almost a slap in the face that we granted the variance and it kind of sat empty for so long. So maybe slap in the face is too hard of language. But I am happy to see that it's now being utilized. So that's just my comment that, apologize for that it's being rented and utilized now.
I was out of the country at the time, but I did remember that case as well. So it's good to see it. Good to see it going forward.
And cleaned up too, because it was a hot mess for a while.
Yes, I agree. I think what I'll do now is go through the findings of fact then, and then we'll go toward a motion. For a conditional use, there's several findings that we need to, put into the record. The first one is that, number one, adequate utility, drainage, and other such necessary facilities have been and or will be provided. I think in the testimony, knowing that we did have some pretty good rains here this summertime, and not hearing or reading anything about, or even in my historical experience with that intersection, having any trouble with drainage, knowing that this was a active commercial building for considerable amount of time, I'm assuming that utility access with DP&L, now AES, and other such services are in existence and are functional. Anybody have any comments or any additions to my comments there on item 1? So I would say that's agreed. Item 2, adequate access roads or entrance and exit drives will be provided and have been so designed as to prevent traffic hazards and to minimize traffic conflicts and congestion to public streets and alleys. In the testimony, we talked a little bit about trailers. We talked a little bit about access to the commercial buildings. I know in the past that there has been an awful lot of cars that have gone to the prior use that was there, aka Feller's Farm, and that from what we've been able to discern, I think the traffic is going to be quite a bit less than some of the more busy areas and busy times that have been there in the past. So I think that and knowing that there hasn't been any changes to the entrance, the exit drives, and the actual road pattern of the property, I would think that it would be adequate to handle the use of the proposed use in front of us tonight. Any comments about that? So we can agree to that one. I did notice in your analysis, Seth, that Taywood Road is going to be expanded or improved further down the road, and that curb cuts and accesses will be granted or made safe and adequate at that time. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The future plan would be a reconstruction of Taywood with curb and gutter, and at that time, any businesses or residents would receive, if they don't already have one, a more defined curb cut.
Okay, thank you. Then we could agree with item 2. Item 3, all necessary permits and licenses for the use and operation of the conditional use have been obtained, or evidence have been submitted that such permits and licenses are obtainable for the proposed conditional use on the subject property. We talked a little bit about the sign and how that particular approval is waiting for the approval of this conditional use. And based on the testimony of the applicant and from staff, I think that we're finally caught up to the paperwork. Thinking along those lines, I would tend to agree with item 3. Do I have any comments on the board? Okay, thank you. Item 4, all exterior lights and artificial open-air illumination are associated to avoid casting direct light upon any property located in the residential zone. We did talk specifically about that, and if you would, please, Mr. Morris, deal with, talk to Seth when you get that backing up and operational. Then, he'll make sure that you're within certain bounds there and everything's good to go. Any other comments about that from the board? If not, we can agree on item 4. Item 5, the location and size of the conditional use, the nature and intensity of the operation involved or conducted in connection with it, the size of the site in relation to it, and the location of the site with respect to streets giving access to it shall be such that it will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the district in which it's located. We are in a mixed-use district, so, you know, we are in harmony with that. Again, with the existing conditional use, that, or the existing use of that property, I think this is going to be a little bit lighter. It won't be as intrusive as perhaps Fellers was, especially when they had a lot of people coming in. With the actual repair being constricted, or constrained, I should say, to Area B as marked on the site map, that would keep any extra noise then contained, you know, within the building itself, within reason, of course. And I would tend to agree with item 5. Any other comments from the board on item 5?
I just wanted to say that since we also did not receive any negative feedback from surrounding residents, that this would also, could agree with this one as well.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Okay, item 6, the location, nature, and height of the building, structures, walls, fences of the site, and the nature and extent of the landscaping and screening on the site shall be such that the use will not unreasonably hinder or discourage the appropriate development, use, and enjoyment of the adjacent land, buildings, and structures. Again, we talked about this as being an existing area. We did not hear any testimony that contradicts or explains that there's you know, non-conforming uses currently, or non-conforming buildings at that time on the property. Again, with what Ms. Weeks said concerning the adjacent property owners with no complaints, I think we're in pretty good shape with item 6. Any other comments from the board? Okay, so we can agree on that. Item 7, evidence that conditional use desired will not adversely affect the public health, safety, and morals. We discussed in this particular use, the one thing that kind of stands out would be petroleum products, any potential contamination of groundwater, any particular fire hazard that may exist, and the applicant has addressed those to our satisfaction with the number of fire extinguishers that are on board, and the you know, the size of the amounts of material and liquids that are being handled, and they are being properly handled, stored, and disposed of. So I don't see any problem with item number 7. Any other comments from the board? And finally, item 8, in granting the conditional use certificate, the board may impose such conditions, safeguards, and restrictions upon the premise benefited by the conditional use as may be necessary to comply with the standards set out in this code to reduce or minimize potentially injurious effects of such conditional uses upon other property in the neighborhood and carry on the general purpose and intent of this code. The only comment I saw from staff during the analysis was that we should restrict the equipment repair to inside of Area B as marked on the site map. Are there any other conditions that we may want to put on this particular application?
Just that one.
Okay. Hearing that, do I hear a motion?
Hear a motion to approve this conditional use with the following condition: that no equipment repair is permitted to occur outside of the enclosed structure labeled as Area B on the site map, on the conditional use site plan that was submitted with the application.
Thank you, Ms. Weeks. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Goit. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Is this the roll call that we would?
Okay, let's do roll call.
McGinnis,
Aye.
Ms. Weeks,
Aye.
Mr. Goit,
Aye.
Ms. Hunter,
Aye.
and Ms. Byers.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Welcome to the community. Okay, I don't think we have any more new business.
That's correct.
Do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Oh, everybody seconded that one.